Coming back to core infrastructure, we have a very, very interesting session right now, which is the aesthetics in infrastructure, something that we have not really touched upon yesterday and the deliberations in the morning. We are privileged and honored to have some extremely talented and, I must say, stalwarts in the field with us today to speak in this session. May I please request the panel curator for this session, Srimati Sarita Vijayan, to join me on the dais. Sarita is the founder of FYI, that stands for Young India. She's a lawyer, editor, and an urban activist. Sarita has over 18 years of experience curating and executing initiatives for the betterment of urban spaces in India. She has been in senior editorial positions in all major media houses in India, including the Business Media and Jasubhai Media. She continues to consult with NGOs, large infrastructure, and design companies with regards to initiatives in urban India. She and her firm has undertaken a number of credible initiatives that influence urban design and improvement. These include assisting in establishing art festivals, conferences, design competitions and exhibitions such as Indian Urban Space, 361-degree conference, AEC World Expo, the Kala Ghora Arts Festival, Street Smart, and Designer Social Capital. With a huge round of applause, may I please request Sarita ma'am to come on stage. May I now please request Ms. Vijayan to invite the other esteemed panelists on stage. I would like to call out their names and then if I may request you to kindly introduce them. It's a privilege to announce the names of the panelists in this session. Shri Raghu Ramaswamy, Director, School of Infrastructure, RICS School of Built Environment. Shri Sumit Chowdhury, entrepreneur, business leader, and international thought leader on telecom, electronics, and information systems. So may I request you to join us, please? And Dr. Srimati Ajantha Sen, International Director of Solar Projects across cross-cultural, collaborative, and learning environments. Welcome, ma'am.
So thank you, the organizers, for inviting us today. Thank you, all of you, for not chewing 32 times and coming here in exactly 15 minutes. So feel free to go back for some more food, but I think what we're going to talk about is interesting food for thought in an InfraConclave. It's not something you talk about every day. You know, we've been to enough and more infrastructure conferences to know that this is not a topic of choice. This is more, we have to push this kind of a topic into an InfraConclave because you are so accustomed to talking about what we call the more important things of, you know, when you discuss infrastructure financing and you talk about policy, you talk about the role of the government. And here we are talking about infra by design. You know, so I'm going to start by introducing my panelists. And what we're going to really do is engage in a sense in a free-flowing conversation to talk about the importance of design in infrastructure. Not design as decoration, not design as an afterthought, but something more integral. I'll start, however cliched it is, with a lady. Dr. Ajantha Sen has a PhD in development planning and from the IIT Mumbai. She's the International Director of the Solar Project, a networking technology project about cross-cultural collaborative learning environments, with her key interests in interpreting technology vis-a-vis cultural paradigms in the emerging markets, the socio-cultural analysis of industrial design-related issues, and critiquing new media technologies and design issues for the media. Dr. Sen specializes in the discipline of interactive design, social computing, and the evolution of industrial design as a co-evolution of technology. I found that really interesting. Dr. Sen serves as a master juror for international design competitions and is a keynote address at many, many platforms. I mean, we've invited her many a time. She's also visiting faculty at most senior design institutions and also additionally lends her time advisory for the Indian Architect and Builder magazine. So welcome, Ajantha. Welcome to this fabulous forum. Dr. Raghu Ramaswamy is Director and Professor, School of Architecture Rick's School of Built Environment. He brings a rich experience of more than 20 years in the infrastructure sector. He has actively advised more than 120 prestigious infrastructure projects in urban transportation, energy, tourism, and commercial infrastructure domain. He has worked closely with various governments, multilateral, bilateral agencies, and corporates to formulate and implement sector strategies. He's a BTech and MBA and has successfully published a number of infra-related articles. Welcome, Raghu. And have you ever published an article on aesthetics and infrastructure?
No.
Okay, we have a culprit right here. Our final panelist, Dr. Sumit Chowdhury. Now, when you talk about smart cities, when you talk about infrastructure, smart cities especially, they are being hijacked by technology companies, the entire term. But here is a man who very, very closely collaborates with design companies. Dr. Sumit Chowdhury is a leading expert in telecom electronics, information systems, and solutions for smart cities. Sumit was the project director of the Swachh Bharat Mission, Ministry of Urban Development, Government of India. He has held distinguished posts with Reliance Jio, IBM, Reliance Communication, KPMG. He has been appointed as the chairman of the Smart City Expert Forum of the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. He's an invited international expert on smart cities at TM Forum and the Brussels Sustainable Development Forum. He's a BTech from IIT Kanpur and MS and PhD in Urban Planning and Management from Carnegie Mellon. He's also a marathon runner. You do marathon. What else do you do? He's written a book, and I don't know what all he does. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have a very varied panel here, but we have a common passion, and we are really here to talk about that. I'm going to start by reading out a very interesting piece that I read by an artist. It was an exhibition called The Big Burning City. And they put in context the idea of aesthetics in infrastructure and why is aesthetics and that conversation important. He says, and he is Ashok Sundaram, he's an artist, among the peculiar ways in which modernism as style developed in the Indian subcontinent, two big family structures are still standing. One could be called the PWD style, the aftermath of socialist modernism in the Nehru-Corbusier era, whose temples of modernity also trickle down into blocks of flat electrical substations, milk booths, neighborhood water tanks, and other structures that deliberately ignore traditional aesthetics, practices, and markets in the attempt to build a new society. The second would be what Ravi Sundaram, he's another artist, has called the pirate modernity. The non-ideological and often non-legal proliferation that arose to fill in the gaps in the grid, so to speak, and by which large populations have accessed water, energy, music, resources, and ideas. The current situation, and this was written about 7 years ago, but is applicable even today, it says the current situation is of intense commercial and global pressure on these regimes, these two very disparate regimes, both of which have a strong aesthetic and it has an aesthetic and an overall dimension. Contemporary infrastructure are looking at the victories and losses sustained by these and other standing structures. Yet infrastructure is a complex beast, also capable of great divide between what they look like and what they do. And I think that's really what we're here to discuss, that we look at infrastructure and what they want to do and then put it in context of the user and then evaluate what it does. Hence the need to discuss aesthetics and the role in infrastructure. So with that, I'm going to put a few general questions first to the panel and then specific to what they do. We were discussing earlier on about the fact that you've consulted in 120 infrastructure projects, Raghu, and you did mention that aesthetics is not even a topic. Do you want to talk about that?
I come from a background advising governments on various projects. I was heading the organization which was a joint venture with a financing institution, IDFC, and a government of Karnataka. Primary job is to develop projects. When you develop, we use the word design very frequently. But when we mean design, design is an engineering design. It's not an aesthetic design. Now, all of us do realize the importance that the finished product should look nice and whatever way we call it. But aesthetics and design was never a topic of discussion so far in the when we structure a project, when we develop a project, we don't really talk about the aesthetics of it. We want it as an end product, but it is not set as a parameter to decide what is there. No, I have seen across sectors, things have changed. Where it was there earlier, a lot of core infrastructure sectors, for instance, water, solid waste management, energy, where there's no structure involved, then the challenge of design as a concept, how do you make it beautiful, is not really thought about. But whenever something, a sector which has a structure, you have a building, you have a tourism project, you have a waterfront project, you have a metro station or an airport terminal, then the concept of 3D views, all these things we see, but we never actually get down to evaluating why design should be a problem or not. I guess there are a lot of reasons for this. One, of course, is very, very person specific, very, very individual specific in terms of what do we mean by beautiful to one may not be exactly the same for so many things. And as we keep debating, I'll elaborate a little bit more later. But there are instances when we thought a structure should be done certain way, aesthetically. The person who is in charge, a politician or a bureaucrat, may have a completely different view. Automatically changes quite a lot. I mean, for instance, tiling in an airport was done differently, Bangalore airport. After some time, they changed completely because someone else had a different view. So, but then, government never actually discusses this topic of design when they configure a project. And we should remember one point, in India, and probably true most across the world, infrastructure is controlled by the governments. Private sector comes in as a delivery agent, but not necessarily the originator of infrastructure. So, but the main entity who looks after the infrastructure never actually thinks about design in that sense. Design is used as a word more for the technical portion of it, engineeringly do it. So that's where it stops. So that's probably the reason why people don't really debate about the aesthetic design portion of infrastructure projects.
Correct. I completely agree that the scope of discussion is still functional. And Ajantha, we were talking about, when there is a saying, it says form follows function, and we are saying in infrastructure form for most part is the function. Do you want to comment on that and the role of design in infrastructure?
So form follows function has become a fashionable word to use. It has a little history. It's actually a very technical term. It came about when in the Industrial Revolution happened and started spewing out really ugly products, and became important that products get imbued with a form that identifies with people's needs, not identify with the machine that spewed out the product. So form followed function because the machine spewed out, and then someone came in to figure, and someone called William Morris at that time said that you need to work together. It took the West 200 years to get there, but they did it with intent, and they created a movement called modernism, followed by postmodernism, which pretty much defines most of the landscapes, the urban landscapes, even the rural landscapes in the West. What happened to us was that, so that was the start of design for the West. What was the start of design for us? Our design goes back to 5,000 years, and we simply lost track of the fact that we have such a rich legacy. The difference between form follows function in the West compared to its equivalent here is what Kamaladevi Chattopadhyay had said the craftsman does. The craftsman actually devised products, which means also the space and the environment, knowing what the user wants, because the craftsman would be one of the users. So he would start with, the whole process would start with the Shilpi, that is the craftsman and his team, move on into something called Shilpan, which was the skill and the conceptualization, moving on into the final product called the Shilpa. Now we had this very integrated process, far more integrated than form follows function, and we chose to abandon that when we became urbanized. So let me take an example of how disintegrated and dysfunctional the industry is in looking at infrastructure devoid of design or design devoid of infrastructure. Some years ago, the Indian Oil Corporation, which is a Fortune 500 company, came to us with a very small problem. For us, it was a very small problem. The problem was that they had just got manufactured the Z pump, if you remember, the Z pump. And the Indian Oil Corporation logo is a round, circular logo. So their big problem at that time was, how do you fit in this round logo to an angular form? So we said to them, look, we'll figure this out. It's not like an earth-shattering problem. But why do you want to figure this out in the first place? What difference is it going to make to your retail outlets? So they said, well, it'll sit better. So we said, your retail outlets, and that's true for all the other retail outlets, the three major companies, BPCL, HPCL, and IOC, they're part of infrastructure because they are at the threshold of the road and the land. It's the common man, people who want petroleum go into those lands. So it's public space in that sense. And although you think you are a standalone company, nobody identifies with you. You identify a retail outlet by saying mandir ke baaju mein hai, or next to so-and-so store. So how does it matter whether IOC sits pretty on a Z pump or doesn't? And they were not prepared to answer the question. They were kind of floored. They were like, not only that you're not taking up the project, you're actually driving us away. So they said, okay, what do you have in mind? So what we said became what came to be called a 2020 vision and changed the face of the retail outlets in the country at that point in time. I'm proud to say that we were part of that initiative. What we told them was that starting from the infrastructural level, because the retail outlet is also a form of infrastructure, starting from the ingress and the outgress, which is the road, into the structural parameters of the retail outlet, that whole ecosystem has to be understood, because if you don't have proper ingress, outgress, you're making a mess of the traffic on the road. And in any case, you don't have a proper identity program. So nobody cares who you are. And you don't even have the facilities that people need when they come into your outlet. You don't have convenience stores. You don't have the things that people would like to buy when they are waiting to fill their cars with gas. From that started our endeavor to build these outlets, which we came up with something called the Rainbow Band, which was a postmodernist solution. And that was the first time that such an endeavor was taken without any help, any overseas help. It was the first indigenous effort to build something infrastructurally. Now, one of the things where design comes in a combination of form and function was as follows. Everything we built from scratch. We conceived of the tiles and we got them built. And the advantage of getting things built for a retail outlet is because it has great scale, 14,000 outlets around the country. Any company will be eager to build something for you. But you see, when you build those tiles, you have to understand that in a country like India, because of very high ultraviolet conditions, because of dust, because of insects at night, you can't do things like backlighting. You can't, there is oil spillage, it gets dirty. So if something looks good initially and you haven't factored into how dirty it's going to become, then you've lost it. So infrastructurally, its value goes down. So you have to understand local contextual conditions, build, set it there, monitor it for a while, and make sure that it becomes a proud part of your infrastructure. And there has to be a sense of pride about what you do. I'll give some more examples, Sarita, because I spoke for a while. If you want me to give them now?
Yeah, I think if you can complete the argument.
Yeah, okay. So from there, I come to a little thing that I read, that Sarita read somewhere, which says, in Patan, this is part of Incredible India, it says, in Patan, there is a structure called Rani Ki Bhav, an elaborate step well, so ornate are its walls it almost feels like one is in a temple. I asked, and this is the brand ambassador Amitabh Bachchan saying, I asked for the architect's name, and no one seemed to know. I asked about the sculptors, even their names were unknown. Here, art precedes the artist, the creation is better than the creator. Now, this step well continues to be functional and was built thousands of years ago. I have a great rant about the way the product building paradigm today is. There was a time when you built something and you took great pride in it. Because you took great pride in it, you built it well and you made sure that it sustains over a period of time because it made economic sense. Today, it's the opposite. There is inbuilt obsolescence into what you do because you simply want the product to last for a few months, between a few months to a year, and then change. Under those circumstances, you can't expect design to take root because design has a process and has time cycle. So it needs to be understood that for design to sit comfortably, you also need to take away inbuilt obsolescence. It also means when you take pride in what you do, that you have an emotive connection with your audience. So just a couple of examples. Okay, there is this zoo in, you must have seen this, Washington DC Zoo, which was, where the designers identified the animals and the birds into 6 categories. And then the designers were Wyman and Cannon. And what they did was to build totem poles. Totem poles are what tribals built. And on each of those totem poles, they lined up each category of the animals and birds. Then at the end of the totem pole, they identified the animals by their pug marks. So the zebra has a certain pug mark, birds and ducks, etc. have a certain kind of pug mark. Elephants have different pug marks. And then what they did was they laid out the pug marks on the roads as wayfinding to lead you into the birds. So intuitively you knew whether you were going to the birds or the animals, big animals, small animals. And no one had to, you didn't need any cognitive tool to help you understand where you're going. You make your choice, you're left alone in a very joyful manner as an audience to enjoy, because design actually elevated and connected you to the place. A second example is Otto Eicher, who changed the face of wayfinding through the Munich Olympic Stadium, where for the first time they used infographics, and he did it with a multilingual and multinational hue, and it became a cultural landmark. People followed that for years together, and some of our designers actually used that paradigm for the designing of signage systems in KEM hospital, which is a very, very busy hospital, and these have also won awards. The KEM hospital is one of the largest in Asia, and you have a lot of unlettered people come in, and people come from different languages, so the challenges are huge. They're very large infrastructure challenges, and they have been met, but only when you recognize that they need to be met at the upstream level, and not when the project is done and you just try to come and beautify. You try to beautify, it's just the hobby of a socialite. That's not design. Design has a process, design is embedded into things, you need to give it time and you need to take the expertise.
Very well said, Ajantha. I'm going to go on to Sumit, and when you look at infrastructure, the buzzwords are bigger, better, faster, cheaper. And technology, IT, project, management technology, material technology is all fueling that desire. And you're also a painter, Sumit. I'm very keen to know what is your definition of aesthetic as a technologist, and you're working with the government on so many projects. How do you push the agenda of aesthetics, if at all?
Yeah. So I actually am a closet industrial designer. I got through IDC. I was all India #1, but I didn't join. I also got through, because as she said, I'm an artist, but I'm also an engineer. And this confluence of engineering and art, where you're looking at things not just for the form of what it's supposed to do, but to make it aesthetic, to make it look good. And when you bring a good product out in the market, people buy it. We have seen that you've got to think this through. You cannot just bring a box and you say, okay, this works, now go back and do design on it. So when we go out in the market today, we actually think through the entire product design, right from the aesthetics of how the box is going to look to all the way to how the software is going to look. Because at the end of the day, we are interfacing with technology. We are interfacing with software screens very, very often now, including wayfinding and signages. As you're saying, those pug marks are a very good example of how somebody thought that through. If we can think that same thing in digital displays, in wayfinding, in many smart city projects today, wayfinding and art and design comes in very, very handy over there. So we are trying to push those projects into the strategy of the smart cities. I have helped many cities do their smart city plans, and we introduced facade changes, taking a whole street and changing. How many of you have been to Amritsar lately and seen what they have done to that little road that goes to the Golden Temple? Amazing. They have completely transformed that way, same buildings, except that they have done the facade change. Simple things, and that simple thing changes. I went to Bade Imambara in Lucknow, and in the middle of this beautiful place is a black penguin, is a dustbin. I don't know why that black penguin is there. I don't know who
Even
thought
the penguin
about
doesn't
putting.
know why it's there.
Yeah, and
Trust
penguins
me.
are not there in Lucknow, but there is a black penguin dustbin, and the other one was a joker. Neither the joker was in place, nor was the penguin was in place, and it was the ugliest thing that you can do. And this is what is happening today in our infrastructure. We have stopped putting thought into this whole process of my journey going in. We helped Varanasi come up with its smart city plan. And they told us you cannot change anything which is heritage, you cannot change this, you cannot remove the cows from the street, a whole lot, and then you have to make it smart. We were just roaming the streets for a week. We were just walking the hall and saying, how can I bring about change in a city and what all can we do? We were standing in the line, we went for the 2 o'clock aarti, and we were standing in the queue for 2 hours on that road, narrow little street. Then we were doing nothing, we were standing there. We realized so many things we could have done for the 2 hours. Changing just one narrow street, would not have cost us any more than 45, 50, 60 lakhs. And the whole experience that you go through, the visual experience of going to a temple, the informational experience. We didn't know which temple we were going to. We didn't know who made it or who created it, at which century, what were the controversies around it, how did the story develop. We had 2 hours to kill. We were sitting there standing at filth. That is design. That is where we are saying that, spend little amount of money, little effort, and change these visual experiences that you go through in a city. It is not about technology. It is about creatively bringing technology and the visual experiences in software, in hardware, in design, in materials. We were trying to figure out what material can go on that floor so that you can walk barefoot for 300 meters and then go to the temple without changing any of the buildings on the left or the right of the little path. So when I look at this problem of design and thinking through, I look at it holistically in that way. I ask those questions, and when you ask those questions, you get those answers. The question is that we have stopped asking questions. We take the box design, as you're saying, the old PWD, sorry, not PWC. Part of the problem, I think, you talked about a process, which was the DPR process, right? It is done by engineers. It is done by people who are functionally good. They tell you how many kilometers of road to be built. They are not designers. At that point in time, if somebody writes down in the requirements of the project, saying 20 marks will be given to a good designed project, these are the feature functionality of design that you need to bring in, there will be a good project. But the guy who wrote down the requirements never thought about it. Not the guys who would actually bid for it. Because the guy who bid for it wants to bid and win. We heard in the previous session about the winner's curse and bidding low and finding it difficult. If you put the conditions and the requirements up front, you won't have that problem. But we have stopped writing that.
No, coming back to, you know, we talked about the fact that we don't connect anymore. Brian Hayes, he wrote a beautiful book. It was called Infrastructure, A Field Guide to the Industrial Landscape, where he talked about something very interesting. He said, infrastructure today is losing its fabled stature. He talked about the fact that post-independence, we celebrated every time an infrastructure project came into light, whether it was what Nehru called the temples of modern India. We reveled, we saw our own progress in the visual changing landscape of the country. But today, he analyzes and he gives data to prove that the bigger the project, the more distance the citizen is becoming. Tell me, Raghu, as somebody invested in this process, do you think that out of sight is out of mind for the citizen today? He doesn't want to connect. Do you think infrastructure is becoming more? So for example, I can tell you I'm from Mumbai. The metro, I think we're all talking in hushed tones about it. It's inconveniencing. We know we need it. We know it's coming up in an extremely ugly fashion. But we don't have a collective opinion and voice as a city. Your thoughts on that?
My doctoral thesis happens to be in water sector. At that point of time, one of the aspects is when does the citizen actually interface? You know, a metro or an airport or even a road, for instance, the interface happens quite late in the system. It's not in the beginning. No one is going to go and ask someone standing on a road saying that, do I want airport here? That's not the way it's done. There are certain ways of thinking about it. Not saying that stakeholder consultation is not important, but when do you actually interface? No. But take a sector like water or a solid waste management, where the citizen involvement has to be there right from the beginning. They're going to be impacted day in, day out. Having said that, analysis of about 20 different projects in the country actually shows that their ability to influence, if any, is negative. And they can demolish a project. They can't actually take a project through. Very unlikely that citizens don't have that kind of bandwidth in India. But their involvement happens after most of the aspects are done. Now, if a metro is being constructed and citizen comes in when digging is happening, there's hardly anything you can influence. Same thing with the water, same thing with the solid waste management or airport and things. Your ability to influence actually diminishes as you move across in a project life cycle. Should you involve them right in the beginning? No. In a democratic setup, how do you take all opinions at one place? What decisions should you give consideration, you shouldn't consider? In these decisions, unfortunately, design is at the lowest end. You know, people don't really think. But they're not able to influence. But having said that, there are instances of late where citizen groups, it's not a citizens as a whole, but there are some interested elements who are quite keen on seeing that things happen the right way. They are able to bring a change.
So you were talking about a project in Hyderabad.
Hyderabad Metro, for instance, or a different projects. Whenever you do something, the technology, for instance, has been enabled. Earlier, a policymaker, suppose I've been to Varanasi like 10 days back. I stood in the same lane, trying to visit the same God, 2 hours. Also at the same time, unfortunately.
What were you all praying for together?
Sorry?
Yes, what were you all praying for? Yeah, go ahead.
Something completely different. But what you can actually do in that area, for a policy maker, it can't visually see anything. So far, you take a mayor or a corporator or a bureaucrat, for instance, you tell him saying that this road will look differently. How is it going to look differently? There's no visual demonstration or a mock-up which is possible to be done so far. Now technology has changed. When we teach, in our school we teach MBA programs in construction management, infrastructure management, we use software left and right. You have lots of options today. And where we interface everything now. Now it's like you have a 360-degree view of everything. You can take a view of this is how the road will look like. I start intervening here, this will look completely different like this. Or I start intervening differently, it may look differently. If I want to make a certain, let's say Sarita Vihar as a child-friendly area, which of the footpaths I should actually change? Which are the lines of electricity which are coming in should I change? Or which tree which is overhanging I can change? All these things now are possible to be demonstrated with the technology. And that actually is bringing a change in the policy.
But who do you think is bringing, is it more citizen or more government?
It's both. Because as I said, so far government has not been thinking about it. But having said that, if you see, roads are actually beautiful. I mean, now.
Where?
You take some of the highways. Most of the highways.
Somebody support me here. Yeah, sorry,
if you have been involved in the highway sector, yes. You should drive 15 years back. Today you drive on a highway. They look quite different and quite... but that aspect has not come because of the government. It's come because the private sector was doing it, wanted to do something different. You take a Delhi airport or a Bombay airport or Hyderabad airport, everyone has their own view of how it should look like, and then the developer ultimately prevails because it's his project. Where government has actually not said that. While some people have done, like for instance in Bangalore Freedom Park, you had a big design competition.
Correct.
On a design competition you do something. Yes. But then those examples are quite few. You don't go for a design competition and do an infrastructure project. You get into a project and then start hoping that someone comes with a good design. That's what is happening. But people have tried to improve that. But these people, they also need to influence the public sector. So they are showing all these aspects in technology. A mayor sitting today in a 360-degree view can see if he changes a Varanasi street, it will look like this. Then he can then appreciate this is what is happening. This is a signage, this is a way I can go anywhere. So that is changing, not at the speed probably at what we want today, but then yes, we are there, we are going on the direction.
So I'm going to pose this to all the, sorry, you wanted to say something?
I think the smart city project plans that came up during the last year, all of the cities were asked to visualize these changes. They were asked to go back to the citizens and ask them what they want. They were supposed to prioritize what they want. Yes, a lot of the cities fudged those numbers and went to people that did not exist, but there was an attempt to go back and ask the citizens whether they wanted a flyover there or a park here or what changes they want. Did they want to, and do they want, what kind of infrastructure projects are actually required by the citizen? I think that is happening. I'm seeing those parks come up, the tenders for those parks coming up. There is a movement in which this design and design competitions are happening a lot more frequently than was happening before. So I have hope. I have hope that people have realized this change of bringing design into it. They are asking, they have given that little bit more premium that was not there before, where design was even effective. Ratan won that project in Mumbai, right?
So in fact, my next question was veering towards the smart city initiative, because I see a lot of cities that are looking at the identity of the city. How do you market a city? Yeah. You know, how do cities become brands? So maybe by default, design is going to play a very important role. But again, Ajantha, you know, if you can address that, you know, again, the danger is it'll get decorative. See, if I'm looking at branding Varanasi and it's just about putting 5 hoardings and 3, you know, painting something in a very obvious color, I mean, that's not beauty, right? So can you talk about identity in a city and the role of design in a more broad sense?
I think we have a difficulty with that in India, especially with cities like Varanasi, because there's a lot of drag. And what goes as legacy and conservation is sometimes not legacy and conservation. It's just this inability to want to see something change and an inability to be able to conceive of something as better. But having said that, I'd like to introduce an idea here, which is an idea of serendipity, which means a coincidence of good things. When I said that we had designed our spaces for centuries together in a combination, an integrative combination of Shilpi, Shilpan and Shilpa, and somewhere we lost that because of the Industrial Revolution's arrival, and our cities started getting disintegrative. The good news, however, is that the smart technologies have brought in an integrative thing. So in a project one of the projects that we did, I was based in Singapore for the last 6 years on invitation from the Prime Minister's office there. And IIT was required to set up innovation labs at NUS and NTU in a tripartite arrangement. So one of the paradigms that we worked with was, and something that Sumit will concur with me, is that you now look, you're back to looking at projects in an integrative way, except that smart technology lets you look at it in a slightly different way because it's a new technology. So you start with information gathering. Citizens are asked to tell you what they want. That information gathering, when you do smartly, is actually done a little bit differently, where smart medias like photos, videos, stories, graphics. So we're bringing in stories, we're bringing in graphics, we're bringing in colors, and they're all medias. They're all smart medias. Begin to tag what you call locations, identity, weather, time, temperatures, noise levels. Once you've done that, and you do that through cameras which are either strategically located or are crowdsourced, because all of us have cameras on our phones today. And in the process of tagging all these medias, you create content. That content is actually occurring through sensors that are time and spatially interconnected and movement based, because you are using your gestures through your phone, and we end up with what is called information gathering. Now, information gathering allows you to reach citizens in a friendly and expansive way. That means you can reach many, many citizens and yet have a personal connect with them, because you're doing both crowdsourcing and you're doing strategic location, right? Otherwise, how would we reach our 1.2 billion people? All right. Now, what are you going to do with the information? You've created content. Now, what are we going to do with this? The content has actually basically created big data. Now, the big data needs to be sensed. It's called sense making. In the process of sense making, what you do is, through use of tangible sensory interactions, you turn them into hardcore, tangible or intangible products. So when, were you telling us about the Banaras instance now, that you were standing in a queue? Right. So for example, you're standing in a queue and you've got 2 hours to kill. Through a set of tangible and intangible products, you could create the experience of what Banaras was earlier, what lies ahead of you, what are the pitfalls, and what you may brace yourself to see, and in the process you become immersed into in the whole thing. So the nature of the crowd itself changes, because then you're exchanging thoughts with each other, you're exchanging stories. Now, this is also happening very interestingly. You're using hand gesture, you're using color gesture, spatial mapping, you're using sound mapping, emotional language mapping, and all of this is very humanly generated. So we have come back full circle to actually generate through human inputs. And lastly, what happens is that information then needs to get disseminated. It's the information dissemination stage, where it is usually social media that is used as a tool of application for dissemination. Now tell me, there's a lot of this that you're doing yourselves. You go back to your native village, you find something, you quickly form content out of it. You disseminate that knowledge, and I'm sitting here getting information about a distant village, and I'm able to incorporate that into the ecosystem of making something which is automatically getting designed. So the Shilpi, Shilpan, Shilpa process has taken on a new form through smart technology. That's the serendipity that I was talking about.
And, you know, very organically, I'm going to lead it to the next point. You know, we talk about, you're talking about the fact that, you know, the same book, Brian Hess talks about, when you look at infrastructure, so as engineers, as planners, as financiers, when you all look at infrastructure, you all look at it like grids on a map, and they're just connectors. So they are small, big, and otherwise grids that you see. The citizen, he argues, also sees it like that. He sees his city as a network of beautiful connections. That's what he sees it as. And he talks about the fact that when you all are planning infrastructure, do you all take in mind that the way the citizen captures infrastructure through his technology? So for what is infrastructure, like for example, I was talking to Kunal Kumar, a fabulous municipal commissioner in Pune. And what he's done is revolutionary. For the next 5 years, he has not sanctioned a single road. He says Pune is a walking city, so we will build better walkways. Now that is a different way of building beautiful, of building appropriately, in his, given the research that he has, because he knows his citizens are actually accessing the city as such. So, when you talk about those connections, to look at social media, the voice of the citizen. In South Africa, in San Francisco, artists get a license. They have to apply, they get a license, and once you have that license, you can pretty much use any canvas of infrastructure in the city to give your artwork a medium. Now what happens is, as you traverse the city is already talking to you. But in our cities, we haven't come to that as yet. And you've been working, it's a very small example, Sumit, but the toilet project that you've been working on, you want to talk about it very quickly. Is that buzzer about how much time we have left?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's scary now. Okay, we have only 5 minutes. Yeah, sorry.
So I've been working with the Swachh Bharat mission, and one of the products, and again this is for gathering citizens' feedback about the cleanliness of toilets. A lot of people don't use the toilets because they're not clean. So after making all these toilets, the government and the whole mission is now focused on how do you make it more sustainable, can you clean it, can you keep it, and how do they find this out, whether it is clean or not? They can keep doing surveys, but you can only do so much of keep asking people. So we came up with this little device, and this device is installed in public toilets now. We have already finished about 12, 13 cities. We have already installed it. We have got to do it for 300 cities now in the next 6 months. So it's a massive project where the government, as part of each city, is placing an order for us to place these little 3-button interfaces which says, is the bathroom clean, is it not clean? For the last 6 months, you will not believe it, we had about 8 cities in the last 6 months. We have collected more than 14 million people have given responses. 14 million, it's not even funny how people are willing to interface with this technology, and it's a very simple thing. You don't have to think twice, you don't need to get trained. It is out there. It is out there, and it is simple technology. You cannot steal it. It is not worth stealing, but it is a beautiful piece of, it becomes part of the furniture of the wall. And we are getting real-time information. And that real-time information is going to the operator of the toilet. If 3 or 4 people press red, one after the other, we alert the operator that there is something wrong. If the day's statistics are wrong or not good, more reds, then we alert the municipal commissioner. And at the central government level, they can see the whole country. Every toilet is being mapped on a map with a statistic which says how much of it is clean. And the other interesting thing is that Google is going to take this data, and when you use Google Maps, you will be able to see public toilets, and you are going to be able to see whether they are clean or not in the last half an hour. This is the kind of interaction crowdsourced from the people, and there is no better way than crowdsourcing it from people, what they think. And we have now moved that, and we have made a software version of it, not button-based, and that is being used in hospitals. We have just closed the deal to do Delhi Metro. So we are going to install these things, and over there they are trying to figure out whether the parking lot is clean, whether the parking attendant is courteous. They are asking all kinds of surveys. So what we have realized that we have stumbled upon a very interesting technology-based survey engine, which can crowdsource anonymous, or you can make it known also, but anonymous is good enough. By trying to identify the person, we lose half the crowd. Yeah. Why do we need to know who it is?
Absolutely.
As long as we are getting valid data, and it is ubiquitous. We keep on getting requests for putting a camera there because we don't want somebody to game the system. We don't need to worry about it. There is enough software which allows me to figure out gaming, figure out all of those things. So
talking about innovative solutions, Sumit also was on. I think Ajantha, you were also on the jury of Ultratech did an award called India Next, and the person who won it. He won it for a project. It was a green walkway above Bandra station. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
so do you want to talk about it a little bit?
The entire stretch, I mean, not just we have a lot of land. I mean, when people say we don't have urban land, I think that's a myth. We just don't make it available for people to come up with innovative projects on top, on below, on the side. We are just not integrating these spaces. So the guy who came up with the design was essentially all our stations, railway stations, are sitting on prime property and on land which can be so beautifully integrated in the ecosystem of that city. I think he came up with a beautiful design, not just Bandra station, it actually spanned like some 5-6 kilometers.
He said, above the entire railway station, build a green lung for Mumbai. And for anybody who stayed in Mumbai, that seems like the most logical thing to do. And that's, that's where we talk about when designers really actively are involved in solving a city's issues. They don't look at beauty as something very, very superficial. And it was really a fabulous design, which hopefully we will take to the ministry and we'll see, to the municipal commissioner in Bombay, and we'll see what comes about it. And since that is zero, I'm going to ask the last question to Raghu. We were talking about how citizens are reinventing their experience of infrastructure, and that really is what it boils down to. When we talk about aesthetics and infrastructure, the point we are trying to gently suggest is that citizens don't consume infrastructure in data. They don't consume infrastructure in scale. They don't quite frankly care how long the ceiling is. They just know the experience of driving through the ceiling is beautiful because it's a beautifully detailed structure. It is built with care. It is built with a citizen experience kept in mind. So, as somebody who's running an institute, on infrastructure, teaching infrastructure, do you think about reimagining infrastructure? What Kunal Kumar is doing in terms of pedestrianizing, creating green lungs. Technology, you don't need to anymore traverse those distances. Is there a way to kind of reimagine the road and that highway, and like sorry, I keep coming back to Bombay because that's my context. I'm like the waterways of Bombay, So do you?
They do. People do. We do teach, and people are actively thinking about how do you make infrastructure worthwhile. Infrastructure is not just a stretch of physical assets, it's more the service, it's more the access what we want. One example which stands out in the world normally is the Sweden case, where citizens actively participate in designing the infrastructure for the city. Like it's like they have a software platform where the government comes with their original plan of what they want to do. Each citizen sitting at his home can actually play around with that and then change the way we want. Obviously, that is their impression. Ultimately, someone will take a call on whether it should be done or not. But citizens can actively get involved in doing it, and it's happening all over the place. And we can see it younger students, when we teach in our courses, because it's a program which is very structured for construction, real estate, and infrastructure. The young minds, when they think of something, is completely different. And I offer you to come and visit the school, but you should come and see that some of them have some brilliant ideas. Now, whether it's financially, technically feasible is a different matter. We'll come to that at one stage and see whether it can be implemented. But people do think about innovative ways of changing lives. On a real estate, for instance, you're speaking of Bandra Park like this. There are ideas of, which is a conventional idea, a landfill being converted into a park. But then how beautifully an infrastructure student and a construction student can do it is completely different. And they have come out with different ways. What happened in Singapore or what happens elsewhere where you have a walkway which is completely like a restaurant in a garden on top. How do you change a building into layers of 7 gardens? And how do you actually do it? So people have come out with this kind of designs. They're actively thinking about this. And as we talk, the bigger airports, for instance, when you compare Hyderabad versus Bangalore, form is one, but also the aesthetics of it. How do you ensure that a person who's getting off comes out at the fastest way and a most aesthetically pleasing way of coming out? So people are thinking about these aspects, and it's happening. So infrastructure is going to change. It's not going to be the same. And there will be better ways, better designs, better things we're going to come, and hopefully we'll see.
Yeah, I'm going to end with an example. Sorry, go ahead.
Just
You have to make that is beeping, and somebody's going to stand up from the organizer and shout at us now.
Just wanted to say that design is not necessarily expensive to commission. Because of technology, new technologies, design is available open source. For example, we have very high, under a mission mode project with the government, we've actually offered wayfinding projects for all the railway stations for across the country, and they're available in vector documents, which actually give you specifications and templates, which means that, and the railway stations today have started taking these and designing them, executing them, which means that hypothetically speaking, the design for wayfinding for every railway station in the country exists on a document called DSOURCE, which came under mission mode. So it's not as if you have to spend on design, you just have to go and find design and use it for public purpose.
So I'm going to end with a personal experience on why we need aesthetics in infrastructure. So a day prior was a Lakme Fashion Week, and we went and we kind of consumed that great content. The day after was the inauguration of the C-Link. So I think Sonia Gandhi was the chief guest there, and it was at 7:30 in the evening. And when those lights came on, I'm telling you, there was nothing more glamorous, there was nothing more amazing to watch than a structure like that lit. And I think when we talk about aesthetics, our simple suggestion is to please think of it from the eyes of the consumer. We are all, and all of us are consumers, we all remember experience. What's that about? If you experience it, you'll never forget it. And I think that's the need for aesthetics in infrastructure. In fact, I was quite amazed. Ultratech has a campaign which says build beautiful also. So I'm assuming, it's all threaded. So yeah, that was, that's how I would like to wind up. I don't know whether anybody would have a question, but we're open to that. Does anyone have a question? We are 2 minutes delayed, but yeah, we can take it. Yeah, go ahead. One question, okay. She's the boss. Yeah, he needs a mic, I think.
Hi, my name is Ganesh. I'm from Dutch. Every city has developed around water bodies. My question is, what part of the smart cities are we devoted to worshipping these water bodies, like lakes, riverfronts? I don't really think the beauty of the aesthetics that you're talking about in the cities will be much.
Absolutely.
Things like this needs to be looked at. And very strangely, we seem to be just sitting there. That's what I can. Even that could be bigger. Any comments?
So the cities that we worked in, all of them made an attempt to find all the old water bodies that were there. A lot of it has actually vanished. You will know that 60% of the water bodies of cities today have all been covered up. They are all dumping grounds. And if they have a little bit of water, then around it is slums. That is what has happened to the water bodies of cities today, by and large. But there is a huge attempt. In fact, all the cities made an effort to put these water bodies on the map and build and at least conceptualize projects around it. Some of these cities have done a great job of retaining walls created, painting these walls in absolute beautiful colors. These have already started, these projects, Kamesh. I think I have a lot of hope that we have actually made that journey. We have at least taken the first few steps towards reclaiming some of these water bodies and making them back again. I mean, I think it all started with the Sabarmati project becoming that massive infrastructure project. Lucknow has it. Obviously, there's a dispute between the two political teams, which one is a better project. But you will see these water reclamation projects happening across the country right now. We are doing a DPR for Bilaspur. There is no river there actually. The river flows underneath the river. So they had to dig up the river and make it flow above the ground over there. So there's a lot of work happening in that space.
I do know that as city planners, you must be really thinking hard on this. Just to tell you that about a decade back, or maybe 15 years back, I remember Bhatkal as a place where I went.
Sorry, which lake?
Bhatkal.
Bhatkal. Where I went boating. Today there is a recognized there. Every year we do expect heavy rains. The Yamuna gets flooded, keep keeping the rain in the mark. Now, is there no structured way in which you can think about, getting this water down and hydrating these water bodies?
So what I want to say is that lots of talk is going on making a city beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a valid question.
I mean, you're completely right that infrastructure is not only about the road. sometimes the absence of a building can be infrastructure. It's social infrastructure.
The negative space.
Yeah, the negative is the positive here. So yes, we completely buy your point, and we have no more time for questions. So I'll just end by saying Sumit is doing, his company is doing a course in smart cities which integrate aesthetics as a key component of that entire course. So feel free to attend and keep thinking about it. Keep sharing amazing examples world over on aesthetics in infrastructure, and we hope that this is my request to the organizer that in your next year, make it almost like a workshop model, because there are many things to be learned about what truly constitutes as aesthetics in infrastructure. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for bearing with our ranting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I think it was been an absolute pleasure and honor listening to all of you. I think, the initiation of building something beautiful, or rather thinking beautiful, starts with creative intelligence, and we've had that in plenty in this session. So thank you so much. A huge round of applause for our dignitaries today. May I please request Manisha? Sir, madam, may I just request you to stay with us for one more minute? Manisha, may I request you to felicitate the dignitaries on the dais? Thank you.